Good morning, and thank you for joining me in another episode of The Conversation with Kelly Diamond on Voluntary Virtues. You can catch me every Thursday at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can also catch my written word every Monday on globalwealthprotection.com. So I think this week has really culminated into a week of fear-mongering from both the left and the right. I gotta say, not participating in that paradigm really gives you some perspective on the common trends and the common arguments that are presented by both sides. If you switch out the variables, you can get the same argument. Yeah, it's almost as if like it's a formula. X plus Y equals 4. So then all I have to do is switch out X and Y, and I always get 4. You know what I'm saying? If I take out 3, if I put X as 3 and I put Y as 1, I get 4. If X and Y are equal, then it's 2 plus 2. It's always, it's a math equation. And so it's just a matter of switching out variables, but you get the same result every time. And it's funny because you hear it with everything. And you would think, gosh, you would approach terrorism differently than the way you would approach guns or the way you would approach Ebola, because they're all different things, right? They behave differently, they affect us differently, they're acquired differently. You would have thought that there would be different considerations for it, but in actuality, it's the same thought process. And when you're for some sort of prohibitive measures and you're for there's got to be a law, if you're that person and you're for that, then the argument is one way, and if you're against it, the argument is structured a different way, but it's the same argument every time. I guess what's funny is that I don't see when because I get nervous and I'm vehemently against, well, someone should make a law. There should be a law. But when I hear that, I'm against it. I don't even care what it is. It should be a law against chopping up your family and, and eating them for breakfast. Yeah, okay, that's wrong. And having a law isn't going to make it any less wrong, more wrong, or less right, or whatever. It's not tacit consent because there isn't a law about it. So but I shirk away against that phrase that there should be a law, but my argument is the same every time. The logic is the same every time. Laws don't stop bad people from doing things. That's why the Constitution doesn't stop people from riding roughshod over it. It's because it's just a law. It has no magical powers. So that's my general argument, and I granulate it down based on the issue. But there doesn't seem to be any sort of uniformity. You would think that the same people who argue against gun prohibition would use the same argument against drug prohibition, but they don't. It's like the logic doesn't cross over. They borrow the fear equation and they drop in their variables. So anyway, I was of course, Ebola is still an issue apparently. I don't know why. You have I think there were like 3 cases in the United States. 1 dude died and 2 people got better, and but this is now an epidemic. We're supposed to all be scared of contracting it. And I don't regard Ebola any differently than I regard AIDS, in that until you really understand the disease, walking around stigmatizing people is really a bad idea. It's a test of character, right? How you handle fearful things. And not to say that contracting a deadly disease like Ebola isn't something to fear. Certainly, I wouldn't want to catch it. I'm not, I'm not going to go out and get Ebola just to show you guys there's nothing to be, nothing to be scared of. The disease itself is terrible. And I'm not trying to trivialize that. What I'm trying to do is put things in perspective. Now, if you lived in West Africa, you have every right to be freaked out. You do. There's 8,000 people dropping dead over this thing, and your medical conditions are hardly hardly sophisticated enough to handle such an outbreak. But here in the United States, I would say it's just a little different. It's different, mainly because the number of reported cases is so low. Out of 300 million people, 3 people got it. I can't. I mean, I'm not even willing to change, to revamp our healthcare system over 15% of our population not being insured. What makes you think I'm going to drop my shit and freak out over 3 people getting Ebola? I mean, the numbers have to be, considerable and staggering for me to start saying, "Oh yeah, government should take action." I have yet to come up with a scenario where I would say, "Yeah, you know what? Let me call the government." Hell, I won't even call the police, much less rely on the government to address the issue of Ebola. I think Ebola, I mean, any disease is something that, is the responsibility and the duty of medical professionals to stay abreast about. I mean, they should know what's going on. They should know everything about these things. I mean, this is what they do. They should know about the common cold. They should know about cancer. Medical professionals are responsible for this. So they should be preparing themselves. The average person should still be maintaining good hygiene as a first world country does, right? So I've already addressed this in a previous episode. But anyway, so this one lady, I guess, was helping to treat people in West Africa with Ebola, which, I mean, it takes a certain person to volunteer to do something like that. So kudos to her, because I hope that if I'd have the courage to do such a thing. But she did, as a nurse, right? She comes back, and I think at one point she might have had a fever. Well, Chris Christie, because he doesn't do anything on a small scale, including himself, he decides to put her in quarantine. Not just any quarantine. Bitch is walking around in a paper suit. No plumbing, no TV, no contact with the outside world. Man, she was living in conditions which, this is what I was afraid of, right? Criminalizing somebody for being sick to the point where her conditions are so deplorable, prisoners have it better. And our prisoners don't have it great. So she's sitting in this room. I don't even think it was a room. I think she was in a tent or of some sort. I mean, it was horrible. I mean, to take her and do that because she had a fever and she came back, from treating people with Ebola. She tested twice negative with Ebola, and I think she finally got some sort of legal help because this is a gross violation of her civil liberties, which it was. Agreed. Yeah, I'll give a fuck what she's got. You don't do that. You just don't do that. Not until you. I mean, first of all, the government shouldn't be doing that at all. Second of all, if you're going to quarantine, it should. I mean, it has to be a voluntary thing. It can't be forced. Okay, but she wasn't even diagnosed with Ebola. Okay, she doesn't have Ebola. They've tested. They haven't done anything, and apparently you can't diagnose Ebola until you become symptomatic. So she's not even symptomatic. Not enough anyway to where it would present itself. So she gets out. She decides to go on a bike ride. I mean, and now the media's following her everywhere. Okay. Where is this Ebola lady? It has no fucking Ebola. I think the critical thing here is she has it right now, as of now, the truth is she doesn't have Ebola. Okay. Could it be dormant? Could it be, incubating? Whatever. At this point, I don't think so. I mean, not after this many days. But okay, possible. Okay. So anyway, I'm reading post after post. All these people saying how selfish she is. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, I don't have a big issue with a person being selfish or self-serving. But of course, it was in the condemning way, right? When I say somebody's selfish, it's because they're looking out for themselves. So to me, selfishness is a virtue, right? I accept the Randian approach to that. But they're saying she's selfish, as in like reckless. How, like, is it any more selfish? So I'm thinking the reason why you think she's selfish is because you think she's putting you at risk, right? She's putting you, the original poster, at risk of contracting Ebola. And so you think it's unfair that she would subject the public, including yourself, to it. Right? But of course, this is all operating under the assumption that she has it. Right? And, the way you don't want somebody going, you don't want somebody bringing their sick kid to school and getting your kid sick. That's inconsiderate, right? Is what they're saying. But of course, the sick kid, whose nose is running and eyes are watering and their head's congested, yeah, you should be keeping that kid home. Not because of anything else. They should be convalescing. But you don't always know, because the incubation period of a cold is 3 days. So you have plenty of time to get somebody sick in the process before real symptoms are exhibited. But it's inconsiderate that this woman would go out, and that's selfish and wrong. And so I said, it's not any more selfish than what you're asking for. You're asking her to quarter herself off, right? So as to appease your sense of safety. You want her to relinquish her right to liberty to make you feel safer. And she won't do it. And therefore she's inconsiderate. Never once considering that asking her to relinquish her liberties on the supposition that she might have a disease is unto itself a very selfish request. Right? I don't know if I would ever ask somebody to relinquish their rights to appease my sensibilities. I would certainly, I guess I would, in the sense, like if I had a neighbor who's being loud in the middle of the night, I would ask them to turn down their music. Of course, I'm asking them to, be considerate rather than, and forego their right to listen to loud music for my own sake. And I guess that is a selfish ask, but certainly not one to the point where I'm asking them to quarter themselves off and deny themselves the ability to even go to the damn store to get groceries. But this is selfish. Right? I can't believe she would do this. You have a responsibility and a duty. A responsibility and a duty to especially as a medical professional, to sequester yourself off if you believe you might have a disease and she's potentially lying that she doesn't have Ebola. Potentially lying. No, right now she's telling the truth. She doesn't have Ebola because there is absolutely nothing that says she does have Ebola. Okay? There is no indication that she has it. So right now she's telling the truth. She's just not, what she's not doing is she's not operating on a supposition that she might have Ebola. She's not operating on a potential truth, right? And so this makes you feel uneasy. She should have sequestered herself and she didn't. That's unbecoming of a medical professional. That's so selfish. That's so inconsiderate. She should have done all this stuff. No. She's not some media whore. She's asking to be left alone. New Jersey wouldn't do it. They wouldn't leave her alone. I had to have a court order to leave her alone. Media won't leave her alone. She just wants to go on a bike ride. She didn't invite the media to come with her. She's been trying to stay away from people. She just wants to live her life. In fact, she's been fairly responsible in her dealings with people. So, what the hell? I'm sure she knows how to handle herself. And perhaps we should be watching and waiting to see who's interacted with her and what happens from there, right? Yeah, I understand it sucks to have to wait until somebody actually commits a crime before we go after them. But you can't, if you haven't hurt anybody, you can't get them on the charges of hurting people. And look at what preemptive action leads to. It leads to a bunch of victimless criminals sitting in a freaking jail cell, highest prison rate in the world. You've got cops who are writing tickets for profit in the name of preemptive action. You had a broken taillight that could lead to an accident. It's dangerous, you know. Improper lane changes could lead to an accident. All of this is preemptive. This is the shit we're pouring ourselves over preemptively, okay? Preemptive strikes. We've dropped trillions into the military-industrial complex to preemptively prevent, you know, the terrorists from coming over and terrorizing, I guess. What they're going to do to us. But, you know, we've been preemptively going over there and striking every Middle Eastern country so that, you know, we don't have terrorists under our children's beds. I mean, we're willing to break our economy, mortgage our future, all for the sake of this fear-mongering, this, you know, this what if. And it's one thing. Now, it's one thing to say, you know, I want to take preventive measures for myself. And so you invest in something, right? You invest in, you know, medical screening, so to take a proactive action against, you know, a potential cancerous growth or a tumor, right? You take measures to protect your house against criminals. So you go and get a gun, so that if somebody comes to your house, you're prepared to defend yourself. What you're not going to go do is take your gun and march through the streets and preemptively kill people because they might be potential murderers. Okay? You're not going to go grab the profile of a serial killer from the FBI, then kill everybody who meets that profile. That's crazy. That's lunacy. Defending yourself is not lunacy. Going out and preemptively killing people, going out and preemptively, you know, quartering and quarantining people is. Violating people's rights preemptively is wrong. That's why these road pirates who write you a ticket for an improper lane change that has affected no one is wrong. They're extorting you for money and stealing from you preemptively and violating your right to property and your right to do what, you know, the right to travel freely preemptively. What they do is no different than what our military does on a larger scale in the Middle East. They go and harass a bunch of people in the Middle East preemptively to prevent, you know, to ostensibly preventing, you know, some sort of insurgency here. And now we want to quarter off these people. We want to quarter off these people preemptively, you know, because to appease our sense of safety again. I mean, I think that's just, you can't do that. I'm sorry. I know. You want to feel safe, but you don't have a right to be safe. You don't have a right to be safe. Not at my expense, you don't. You have a right to protect yourself, which is a completely different thing. But you don't have a right to be safe. That's impossible. It's an impossible right to honor. And the cost of you being safe is greater than I'm willing to pay. I don't care who you are. If you're my kid, you don't have a right to be safe. I have a right to try and protect you. You have a right to try and protect you. But you don't have a right to be safe. And I'm not going off and violating people's rights and their sense of safety to provide you with that sense of safety. So you're going to have to find another way to feel safe. It's up to you. Your safety and safety is a feeling, right? Safety is a feeling. It's not necessarily a permanent condition, but it's a feeling that you have, right? That's your responsibility. Your feelings are your responsibility, and therefore I will not stand in your way of taking whatever measures are necessary for you to feel safe. You don't want to leave your house? You want to buy a bunch of guns? You want to, you know, tent up your house? Fine. Do whatever you think is necessary for you and your family. But please don't expect other people to bend over backwards and live in tents for you. And don't expect people to be eager to have American troops occupying their land and their country and their city their township with tanks, don't expect everybody to fucking jump up and down at the measures that you're requiring of them for you to feel safe. That's no. No, I'm not responsible for your sense of safety. No one else is responsible for your sense of safety, except you. Which is why I believe that everybody should have free access to guns, because you're responsible for your safety. The government is not responsible for your safety. You need to take that out of their hands, because when you put safety in the hands of government, that gives them full reign to trample all over your civil liberties and all over everyone else's civil liberties in the process. The same guy who's going to come for your marijuana and break down your door for it and kill your dog is the same guy who's going to come and collect your guns, and is the same guy who's going to quarantine your ass because you have the fucking sniffles. So you need to not put safety into the hands of the monopoly of force. Okay? You don't give them that. That's you. That if you want to take back your rights, if you want to take back your liberty, you want to take back your country, like some, patriot or whatever the hell, then the first thing you do is you take away the responsibility of safety from the government, and you reclaim that as your own. Because the oppression you're feeling now is the same oppression you're calling for to appease your sense of safety. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Now, the second argument that was equally fear-mongering, has nothing to do with life and death per se, in the sense of, like the physical safety, but more of your economic safety, is that I see this silly meme circulating saying that the downfall of our economy is not going to be because of anything other than people are going to be making too low of a wage to afford to buy anything. People are going to get paid so low that they won't be able to afford to buy anything, and our economy will collapse. And I'm thinking, what? That doesn't make any sense. How does that make any sense when you can look right over the ocean to our east, to our west, I guess, to our west, technically the Orient, but whatever. Look over into China, the land of the low wage. Okay, I mean, people are making some dirt poor wages out there. I mean, I don't even think you're allowed to complain about an $8 minimum wage in China. I mean, you can live like a king out there, $8 an hour. So, okay, China's economy has surpassed the United States in every way except for the raw GDP. In every way, China has officially beat the United States, except in raw GDP. And the reason why it's beat the United States as the largest economy is because of the buying power translation. When you translate the buying power of a yuan to the buying power of a dollar, they have greater buying power. Okay. Which means buying power means that their monetary unit is not overinflated like the United States. So while they're suffering their low wages and their sweatshops and what have you, they're actually experiencing an industrial revolution. Their quality of life, believe it or not, is going up. Low wages be damned, their quality of life is going up, despite the low wages. Now, they don't have unions, so they might be willing to work more than 40 hours a week. And they have a work ethic, which means they might be willing to work 2 jobs. Both of which are completely unheard of in the land of the land of the unions. We're all beating our chests over union wages and union benefits. So it's like, okay, so then a few people can have that, but we can't employ as many people now because we have to pay for the expense of these people, right? The AFL-CIO or whatever it is, that's what we've got, and as a result, we've priced ourselves out of the market. And so when people say, well, the way the economy is going to collapse is that nobody's going to be able to afford anything, because of the low wages. No, 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 no. We're not going to be able to afford anything because of the low buying power of our dollar. That's why we can't afford anything, is because dollars aren't worth anything. You know, I mean, seriously, our dollar is like, I would say it's like heroin. You take, you know, at one point, a dollar bought you a lot of shit. At one point, a tiny little hit got you crazy high. But now, because you've been pumping yourself with this shit for so long, it takes a lot more to get the same high. And likewise, we've been pumping our system full of dollars for so long that it takes a lot more to buy the same shit. There's no buying power. That's the problem. Is that our dollar isn't worth anything. Is that our dollar's been overinflated. So it's not about raising the wages to match the inflation and to match the, you know, the devaluing that the federal government has been imposing. It's not, you know, I need $100 minimum wage because, you know, and I make $1 billion a year now, and $1 billion a year doesn't mean anything because it's still minimum wage. It's still poverty. I mean, what we're looking at is a Zimbabwe situation. I mean, and that's not fear mongering. That's just history. Right? That's just watching various trends happen in other countries and saying that we're heading in the same direction. Of course, while I realize that an economic collapse is imminent and inevitable, I'm not asking to violate anybody's rights in the process to appease my sense of safety and stability. Okay? So while I am fearful of what will happen, I'm not so fearful that I'm willing to forego everybody else's rights. And you don't have a right to a living wage. Now, you have a right to demand compensation for labor and services rendered, and you can name your price. I don't know if anybody will pay it, but if somebody's willing to pay that price for your labor, then great. That's what you're trading. But your employer's not paying you to simply live. Your employer has hired you for a given position in his company, and you have agreed to perform certain tasks and take certain responsibilities and produce whatever in exchange for a wage. He didn't put on there, this wage is also to pay you to live. No, because he doesn't care what you use the money for. It's not his business. You don't want him telling you what to spend your money on. Remember Hobby Lobby? We don't want our employers telling us what we should be doing with our money and our benefits and blah 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 blah. Well, if you don't want your employer involved in that shit, then certainly don't expect him to make sure that you use your money and your wages to live. He's not to concern himself with those things. You're to concern yourself with those things. So, safety and living are both your individual responsibility, not our collective responsibility, not your employer's responsibility, not the government's responsibility. They're your responsibility. Yes, anarchism is not for the lazy of heart. Being stateless is hard work. Everybody seems to think that, well, when I say fuck the government, when I say, when I blame the state for things, rightly, I should say, and when I call for the abolition of the state, the peaceful dismantlement of it, it's not a lazy argument. It's a very difficult argument, and it's a very difficult philosophy to live out. But freedom, being free, is not without work. It might not cost you anything. It shouldn't cost the lives of people, and it shouldn't cost you money, but it should absolutely cost you in work. Surviving, living is work. And part of that is maintaining your sense of safety and providing for your own needs, and to fearmonger in order to get in order to appease your sense of safety and to appease your living standards is absolute nonsense and unacceptable. The same argument that people are making to take away this one woman, this nurse's liberty, is the same argument being used to take away people's guns. And the right has no qualms about using it. Ironically, the left is defending is defending the rights of the nurse. That she could potentially kill somebody because she could potentially have Ebola. Okay, well, she could potentially kill somebody because she has a gun. Switch them out. It's the same argument. The right advocates for guns and says, I'm not selfish and I'm not wrong to want to protect myself. I'm not inconsiderate for wanting to own guns and be educated and learn how to use it safely and protect myself and my family. It's my right to protect myself and my family. But it's not the right of that individual nurse to exercise her liberties and be free until she's actually been diagnosed with a disease. That's not her right to live her life. The left is arguing, well, it's the nurse's right to be able to go out. She's not been diagnosed with Ebola. She has every right to go out and be free. And so this potential harm and this potential danger is what we use as the generic argument against anything to make a law and to get the government involved. And that type of mentality has to stop if you want your freedom. If you want your liberty, you can't do that anymore. You're going to have to find another way. You're going to have to deal with the fact that danger exists, disease exists, people with guns exist. And we can peacefully live amongst all of that if we keep our heads about us and we keep our wits about us. And maintain a rational state of mind. It's when the shit hits the fan, are you still for liberty? Not are you for liberty when everybody's not sick and nobody has a gun and there is no, fair weather libertarians, there's no place for you. Okay? It's the rough weather libertarian. You need to start thinking about how you're going to handle adversity, not just how you're going to handle getting roads. Give that some consideration. All right. I'll catch you next week. Take it easy. Bye.